Hello students, this is the first video that I am going to post in my recently launched educational video channel that is titled as The Literary Thursday. By the name you can easily understand that it is a pun. That means the thirst for knowing about literature as well as the fact that I'm going to post each and every Thursday of the week a special educational video for you all. If you like the channel, please subscribe so as to ensure that my viewership increases. Thank you. As for today's video, the topic that I am going to discuss with you is a very controversial poem by Jayanta Mahapatra, which is titled as Hunger. Before we discuss the poem in details, let us have a quick discussion about the author. Jayanta Mahapatra is one of the best known Indian English poets. Perhaps any discussion on Indian English poetry is incomplete without reference to his poetical works. A physicist, bilingual poet, essayist, Jayanta Mahapatra holds the distinction of being the first Indian English poet to have received the Sahitya Akademi Award in 1981. In 2009, he was awarded by Government of India with Padma Shri Award for his outstanding contribution to the field of literature. Jayanta Mahapatra, born on 22nd October 1928 in Cuttack, belonged to a lower middle class family. He had his early education at Stewart School, Cuttack. After a first class master's degree in physics, he joined as a teacher in 1949 and served in different government colleges of Orissa, mainly as a physics professor. He retired in 1986. Jayanta Mahapatra started his literary career at the age of 38, quite late by normal standards. Mahapatra's tryst with the muse came rather late in life. He published his first poems in his early 40s. The publication of his first book of poems, Swayamvara and Other Poems, in 1971 was followed by the publication of Close the Sky 10 by 10. His collections of poems include A Rain of Rights, Life, Signs, and A Whiteness of Bone. One of Mahapatra's better remembered works is the long poem Relationship, for which he won the Sahitya Akademi Award in 1981. His recent poetry volumes include Shadow Space, Bare Face, and Random Descent. Besides poetry, he has experimented widely with myriad forms of prose. His lone published book of prose remains The Green Gardener, a collection of short stories. A distinguished editor, Jayanta Mahapatra has been bringing out for many years a literary magazine, Chandrabhaga, from Cuttack. The poem that we are going to discuss about today is taken from his anthology, A Rain of Rights. Mahapatra wrote many poems on the themes of poverty, hunger, starvation, sexual exploitation, and bestiality of males. Jayanta Mahapatra's poem Hunger is a famous poem written on a unique theme. The poem clearly says about the need for food and the appetite for flesh and sex, both animal desires. It reveals the hardship of a fisherman who cannot make both ends meet. We can vividly feel the pain and anguish of the father. The poignancy of the situation is that hunger imposes tragic compulsions. The poor father kills his conscience and entices clients for his daughter, who has become a prostitute. This poem describes the plight of the fisherman. Talking about the title of the poem, let us focus on it. Hunger. This very word is used to evoke multi-layered meanings. As the very first impression strikes us, the hunger for food. It is the literal meaning of the word. If we go deep into it, we'll realize that the poet meant something more than that. It is the hunger for sexual gratification. There is other side of or other meaning of hunger embedded in the word as well. This other meaning is emotional hunger. And finally, what comes out of hunger is also a latent theme related to the title, that is spiritual vacuousness or spiritual emptiness. Because in order to fulfill one's sexual desire, one loses his soul. Therefore, he gains nothing. So, the spiritual emptiness is another meaning of the title of the poem, Hunger. Okay? Now, let us focus on the poem itself. Let us probe into the first stanza of the poem. It was hard to believe the flesh was heavy on my back. The fisherman said, "Will you have her?" carelessly, trailing his nets and his nerves, as though his words sanctified the purpose with which he faced himself. I saw his white bone thrash his eyes. There is an element of poignancy embedded in the very first stanza itself. On the surface, it will mean, or it might seem, that the speaker is burdened by a heavy luggage that he is carrying on his back. He is overweighted by it. But if we go deep into it, if we try to analyze the metaphorical meaning of it, we'll see that there is a special word attached in the very first line, that is flesh. It clearly denotes the topic of or the concept of sexual hunger. So here the speaker is troubled or overburdened by the feeling of sexual hunger, the desire to fulfill his sexual hunger, and that is the male desire. Now, as he says, it was hard to believe. We can easily understand that the speaker is ridden with guilt and tormented by a sense of compunction as to what sort of a sinful act he is going to commit. In fact, he couldn't believe his own act. In the next line, we come to know that he is on a boat with a fisherman who says to him, "Will you have her?" Here, the word her refers to the daughter of the fisherman whom he offers to the poet to have sex with. It is quite strange and impossible, as no father ever offers his daughter to strangers for quenching their sexual thirst. While asking, the fisherman seems to be carelessly trailing his nets. But he was in no way careless. His nerves were stretched and tight, and white bone thrashing his eyes means that Here the white bone personifies hunger itself. What sort of hunger is he desirous of? It is the hunger for food. That means the fisherman is crippled with something called economic crisis. By normal standards, he cannot provide food to his daughter. Hence, he has to become a broker and pimp his daughter into this heinous act of prostitution, and thus bring the speaker as a client who would be able to fulfill his sexual hunger by feeding on her. The eyes signify conscience. What sort of conscience is the poet referring to? The conscience of the society. And it further signifies the fact that the speaker is tormented by a sense of guilt with regard to this hateful act of sexual gratification that he is desirous of fulfilling. As he is trailing the nets, on the surface we feel that he, being a fisherman, will drag his nets as his job of catching fish is over. But metaphorically speaking, it means that the net is a lure, is a trap to lure the clients so that they feel persuaded by the fisherman and thus reach his house to get their sexual hunger satisfied or fulfilled. Note one thing: the daughter's consent or permission is not taken. It is not clear whether she wants to have sex or not. Therefore, we understand out of a terrible situation that the father, who is also a fisherman, finds himself. He has lost sense of the fact that after all it is his daughter. Rather, he treats her as a commodity, as a prostitute who doesn't have her own voice, who doesn't have her own choice, and most importantly, who doesn't or who cannot exercise her own identity as an individual, because she is a prostitute and society looks down upon a prostitute who doesn't have any privacy whatsoever. Coming to the second stanza, I followed him across the sprawling sands, my mind thumping in the flesh's sling. Hope lay perhaps in burning the house I lived in. Silence gripped my sleeves, his body clawed at the froth. His old nets had only dragged up from the seas. The poet then followed him across the sprawling sands. Sprawling means the sands that are spread. His mind was thumping in the flesh's sling, meaning that the poet's mind was throbbing, it was trembling, it was shaking out of immense nervousness. And his skin was trying to support it like a sling or the bandage used for supporting a broken arm. The poet thought that this sin will be forgiven by burning the house that he lived in, because by trying to fulfill his sexual hunger, the speaker actually disrupts the peace of the girl's house as well as the fisherman's. So he doesn't have the right to stay and spend a peaceful life at his own home. Hence he feels that his act, which is otherwise a very sinful act, will be forgiven if the house that he lives in is burned down and it comes crashing down and he becomes homeless. By the way, as he says, that in burning the house I lived in, he not only means the house or the 4 square room that he lives in, rather he considers everything that belongs to him hateful. He starts hating everything that belongs to him because he feels out of extreme sense of guilt that he has polluted everything that belongs to him by trying to fulfill or achieve sexual gratification. Then the silence of the poet was grabbing him, and it seemed that the silence has gripped his sleeves, that his silence was passing throughout his nerves. Silence got the better of his conscience. It was perhaps his nerves that were stretching. The fisherman looked at his old nets, which had caught nothing but the foam from the sea. This is also meaningful. Just like the fisherman has been unable to catch even a single fish from the sea and has caught foam instead. And foam, as we all know, lacks solid existence, solid identity. In the same way, by his act of sexual gratification, the speaker clearly understands that he has fetched or achieved nothing. Rather, just like the fisherman who is carrying back foam to his house, in the same way, he is carrying back sin. He has spoiled his soul by hamstringing it with sin all over. So he has achieved or gained or profited nothing out of this business of sexual gratification apart from sin. Coming to the third stanza. In the flickering dark, he is lean to open like a wound. The wind was I, and the days and nights before. Palm fronds scratched my skin. Inside the shack, an oil lamp played the hours bunched to those walls. Over and over the sticky soot crossed the space of my mind. As they reached the fisherman's hut, which was quite dark and open like a wound, we understand that the fisherman's life, symbolized by the hut, lacks privacy. What happens if we keep a wound exposed? Germs and viruses which are airborne will intrude into that injured spot of the body, and the injury or the wound will only worsen. In the same way, clients keep rushing into the house of the fisherman, and the daughter of the fisherman seems like an exposed wound to them. Because she doesn't have privacy, she can never deny their demands of sexual fulfillment. Rather, she has to abide by their claims or demands. She has to meet their demands. And so the clients act like viruses and germs that constantly attack the exposed, wounded area and damage it further. The wind here symbolizes storm, which was going into the mind of the poet. Days and nights means that it was happening all the time without stopping. While entering the hut, the leaves of the palm tree were scratching his skin in the metaphorical sense. They were stopping the poet from committing the sin. Inside the roughly built hut, the oil lamp had confined and fastened the hours to the wall. It probably means that the time has been stopped in the hut. There is no day, but only the night. The night is not only in physical terms or temporal terms, but also in the metaphorical sense, because there is the darkness of sorrows over the fisherman and his daughter, and there is no way getting out of it. The smoke coming from the lamp was filling his mind, and he was feeling either dreamy or helpless. Coming to the last stanza. I heard him say, my daughter, she's just turned 15. Feel her. I'll be back soon. Your bus leaves at 9. The sky fell on me, and a father's exhausted while. Long and lean, her ears were cold as rubber. She opened her wormy legs wide. I felt the hunger there. The other one, the fish slithering, turning inside. The poet hears the fisherman says, my daughter, she's just turned 15. Feel her. I'll be back soon. Your bus leaves at 9. 15 is the age when a girl is at her charm. She should have a better life. She should enjoy her time, her youth, because she is in the prime of her youth. But poverty, penury, starvation have crippled her life, and she is handicapped with crisis gripping her all over. In the same way, the poverty and extreme hunger make the fisherman pimp his own daughter in exchange for some money or food. The way fisherman persuades the poet to have sex with his own daughter makes the poet feel as if the sky has fallen on him. It also means that he is going to commit a very sinful act, by virtue of which he will lose the chance of ascending to heaven when he dies. The poet finds the girl who is young but malnourished due to extreme poverty. Seeing the poet, she opens her worm-like legs. The description clearly suggests that she is malnourished on one hand, and she has slumped her status into that of a worm. That is, she is no longer a human being. She has become a very creepy creature, like a worm. She has lost all sense of humanity, individuality, conscience, and so on and so forth. Now, at this stage, as the poet happens to see the girl in all her nudity, he instantly realizes the other meaning of hunger, which is quite opposite to the sexual hunger that he was feeling within for so long. This is the real hunger, the hunger for food, because her figure is not at all attractive. Rather, it showcases one thing very clearly, that the girl, and in the sense the fisherman as well, are indebted by extreme poverty, and this poverty is insurmountable. It is irredeemable. Hence, he derived a kind of anagnosis, or he underwent a kind of epiphany at this stage, realizing that hunger for food to overcome the poverty is more important than his personal desire for sex. So hunger in the last stanza merges the two meanings instantly. Prior to reaching the last stanza, we thought, or we were waiting to see how the speaker fulfills his sexual hunger. But the moment he gets the chance to accomplish that mission, probably he flinches, because he realizes that hunger for food is more appealing than the mere hunger for lust, which is called sexual hunger. And here ends the explanation of the poem. Thank you.